Hey guys, Tyler Ansman here with Tyler Ansman Performance. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is a relatively common issue that we see, and it's guys getting kind of too linear or kind of elbow dominant with their throw, especially during their drill work, okay? And this is something that we're seeing a lot more now that drill work prior to kind of the main throwing of the day has become pervasive. And I think this is for a few reasons. But let's kind of talk about the overarching kind of goal of the throw first, how the arm action works, and then we'll go from there. So if you've kind of read any of my articles or seen my videos in the past, you'll know that kind of impulse is the overarching theme that kind of drives throwing velocity, right? Force multiplied by time. And so we kind of have two ways of kind of increasing impulse, right? That kind of area under the force time curve. And so we can either extend the time. So this would be, if we're talking about the arm action, kind of expanding the range of motion, right? How long are we in contact with the ball? How long can we apply force to the ball for? And the other piece is, how do we increase that kind of rate of force development or kind of drive that peak way up, all right? And so those are kind of the two ways. And so what's kind of happening when guys get really elbow driven here is that for one reason or another, they don't have the capability, or their body won't allow them to kind of utilize the capability of kind of being pulled through separately, right? Where the torso is pulling the arm through. We're going to get laid back, right? And then we're going to let it unwind into internal rotation, right? Elbow extension, then internal rotation. Instead, we're still trying to kind of find that time that we can kind of apply force to the ball, and we're still trying to extend that. So what's going to happen is we're going to use elbow flexion and extension to do it instead, right, when we can't get it from here. So your body's going to find a way, right, to kind of complete the goal, if you will. All right, but this can be kind of exacerbated by, one, not necessarily completely understanding the goal of a given drill or the throw itself, or by incorrect kind of ball weight prescription or drill prescription, all right? And so that's kind of the stuff we're gonna dig into today. How do we help guys kind of overcome this issue? And what do we use to kind of help them get out of this overly linear, elbow-dominated type of throw without just kind of shouting verbal cues at them, right? How do we actually make this change? And that's what we're gonna dig into in this video. I think the other kind of important thing to understand is that, you know, from a health standpoint, there may be, you know, issues that come from this kind of elbow-dominated throw. Anecdotally, the guys that we've seen that have this issue and throw reasonably hard, they do tend to have some type of elbow pain, whether it's kind of in the distal tricep or medial elbow pain. And so we obviously want to get them out of pain as well as kind of enhancing the performance side of things. All right, so we're going to dig into it in this video. We'll talk about kind of how we get guys away from this and the various avenues that we can take. Once we ensure that conceptually the athlete understands the throw, the first box to check is the mobility piece. If we're asking athletes to get to and through positions they're physically incapable of, we have an issue. The first thing we'll do is some soft tissue work. So we want to attack the pec minor. This is done better with a manual release from a therapist because the pec minor is deep to the pec major, so it's much easier to kind of get in there with a set of hands than it is with a lacrosse ball and a barbell, but this will work as well. We also want to do some work for the posterior shoulder. If retraction, horizontal abduction, or glenohumeral external rotation are restricted, a throw dominated by elbow flexion and extension becomes much more likely. After we do these releases, we'll have some new range of motion that's temporary, so we'll want to add some control and strength to it, so we'll move through it. First, we'll do some isos. Push-up isos can work well here, especially through an expanded range of motion. Snow angels, these can also work really well. Take your time through these. Ultimately, these could be loaded as well. Prone, external, and internal rotation isos are great here. You know, end range pec iso flies can also work. These are all just some starting points and some ideas. We'll add strength and kind of grease the groove through here. The next order of business is to make sure the ball weight isn't too heavy. Overload balls are great for helping feel relaxation through deep ranges of motion. It can give great feedback about movement errors and changes. But if the overload is too extreme for an athlete, they will often resort to throwing darts, right? So we see that kind of overly linear arm action dominated by elbow flexion and extension. All right, so now let's get to the drills. The goal is for the athlete to feel the arm unwinding into elbow extension away from their body a bit. So cueing sidearm throws can be helpful just kind of as an overarching theme here. But here are some drill ideas. So split stance throws would be, one of the first ones. These are a staple for us because they check so many boxes for movement correction. But a couple of the kind of relevant pieces here are we'll feel the pec stretch behind the body and that reflexive pull if you kind of get that right. It also allows the arm to unfold away from the body. And this doesn't even mention the lower body issues that it can help clean up. That's beyond the scope of this video. But this can be a really, really helpful drill for just kind of feeling this less linear motion. What you don't want to have guys do is just dump forward, kind of lunge over that front leg and just dominate it with flexion and extension of the body as a whole. Next would be kind of 10-toe variations. These are a very simple way to kind of help clean up, these issues among many others, right? Again, kind of a staple because these can be used for so many things. Main thing here would be we just don't want to, again, drive the ball into this kind of flexion extension kind of fashion into the wall, which guys will tend to do, especially if they've spent a lot of time doing, wrist flicks and things like that at the beginning of their practices. It'll just be something that we need to kind of reconceptualize. All right, so one leg throws, these are kind of a simple option, right? So you'll be on your ipsilateral leg. This just allows athletes to find a comfortable plane. It'll be nearly impossible to get super linear here. So just kind of let them feel it out. Don't overly cue this in any meaningful way other than they're going to take some ipsilateral tilt to that side. And this will allow them to just kind of feel out what feels best for them. All right. Next one would be spinning glove side throws. These are fun. We pick up the tempo. It keeps athletes from overthinking, right? It just kind of gets them into a flow state, and it can make it easy to drive the arm action in plane. As you're spinning, right, once you pick up the tempo, there's really not a lot of time to kind of get up and over, right? You're going to have to just kind of sink it into the plane of torso rotation. All right, jump throws are another great option. So I have a whole video diving into why jump throws are great for a lot of things. But again, overthinking is minimal here, and kind of the reciprocal pattern of the limbs, right? So counter rotation of the lower body and upper body can work really well here and kind of force this to be a more rotational pattern. These are just a few ideas. Just something that I was kind of thinking about from seeing a lot of really, really, really linear throwing patterns for guys who are coming in for assessments and things like that. But this only scratches the surface. There's a lot of possible ways we can go about making these changes. But these are just a couple ideas to kind of get you rolling. Thanks for watching. Feel free to drop any questions you have below. If you'd like to train with me remotely or in person, shoot me an email. Let's talk.